Hello, my name is David Stanley. I'm the stepbrother to Elvis Presley. I moved in the Graceland mansion when my mother Dee married Elvis's father, Vernon. I lived there for 17 years. I'm standing in a unique museum. In this museum is over 200 artifacts that belong to Elvis Presley. For me to be here is like a homecoming. As I walk through and pick things up, I have such great memories. Spending all those years with Elvis Presley and doing so many things with Elvis Presley, and then to be able to come here and relive those moments has been a treat for me. Throughout this video, we're going to take you through. I'm going to tell some stories about the things that I could associate with when I was with Elvis Presley. Hopefully, as I tell you these stories, you'll get the feeling I did. So come along and join us and enjoy the tour. This unique museum includes some very rare artifacts of Elvis Presley, such as this Mercedes-Benz given to Elvis's doctor by Elvis. This 1977 Lincoln Mark V, the last car that Elvis bought. This 1965 Impala, a car that Elvis was originally going to trade in for a Cadillac, but decided to keep for himself. Concert memorabilia, including this rare leather suit and tour jackets worn by members of the Memphis Mafia. Jewelry that Elvis gave to his friends and family. The famed TCBs and TLCs. TCB, taking care of business, and for the ladies, TLC, tender loving care. This wonderful clock that used to sit upon Elvis's desk at the Graceland Mansion. Rare book that Elvis once owned, and perhaps one of his favorite literature works. When duty called, Elvis answered. Behind us is a unique display case holding artifacts of Elvis's military memorabilia. Elvis was in the 3rd Armored Division while in Germany. Here's an actual set of Elvis's division patches and soldier stripes. Elvis was very proud of his service in the 3rd Armored Division, something that he always talked about throughout his life. This, in fact, is a unique artifact. This twin bicycle is a bike that Elvis used to ride around on the backlots of the movie studios in the 1960s and 70s. There's a lot of history with this bike. In the movie That's the Way It Is, there's a scene to where Elvis gives this bike away to an English fan club for charity. It's a unique item, and it certainly brings back a lot of memories. The leather suit that's in this case really didn't work out. Although it was one of Elvis's favorites, he got awful hot wearing leather. And the funny thing about it is it would oftentimes shrink up. This 1977 Lincoln Mark V was probably the last car that Elvis bought. Oftentimes he drove around Memphis in this car with his girlfriend Ginger. The car was not bought in Memphis. It was bought in California and brought back to Memphis. Elvis wanted a white one, couldn't find one. They found this one and brought it back to Graceland. It's a beautiful car and a great addition to a wonderful museum. In this picture, you can see me, David Stanley, escorting Ginger and Elvis into the car that you have just seen. This 1965 Impala convertible was once owned by Elvis. He kind of got it in a unique way. He had bought his friend George Klein a new Cadillac, and when he did, they were trading this car in for the new Cadillac. When instead of giving it to the dealer, Elvis liked the car so much he kept it himself, driving it around Memphis on the hot summer days. One Christmas, Elvis decided to give this car away. It wasn't just to any one person, it was to a very special person. His name was Gary Pepper. Gary was the head of the Memphis fan club for Elvis Presley. Gary was a paraplegic, so he was less fortunate than most. Certainly challenged. Elvis felt for Gary. Oftentimes he invited him to the house. He made sure he came to all the Christmas functions and holiday functions. Well, on this particular Christmas, Elvis wanted to give the car to Gary. He walked up to him, and there Gary sat in that wheelchair, and Elvis said, "Here, I want you to have it." So this car has a wonderful history, not only as Elvis's car, but as one of the great gifts that Elvis gave to a great person. This 1977 Silverado truck was bought by Elvis on Christmas Eve of 1976 and was given to his father, Vernon, as a Christmas present. Although Vernon drove it a lot, Elvis loved the truck so much that he found himself driving it even more. When he bought the truck, it was a demo sitting on the lot in Memphis. He wanted it so bad that he just went ahead and bought it instead of waiting for a new one to come in. This truck was at Graceland at the time of Elvis's death and was one of only 2 vehicles sold by Graceland after the tragic death of Elvis Presley. This Mercedes-Benz was given to Dr. George Nicopolis by Elvis Presley as a gift. And although Dr. Nick enjoyed this car, Elvis drove it quite often. For you see, when he would go out, people would recognize his other vehicles. So he would look at Dr. Nick and say, "Do you mind if I borrow your car?" And he would try to be in somewhat of cognito. We used to drive out the back gate of Graceland in this car, and people so recognized it as Dr. Nick's, they didn't think anything about it. Needless to say, Elvis loved guitars, and this particular guitar was one that he kept at his home in Memphis. And he'd sit around and do a lot of picking on this guitar, come up with concepts for new songs and ideas, and this was amongst his favorite. This Harmony guitar, electric guitar, was another one of Elvis's favorites. It was amazing how good Elvis played guitar. And this one is another one, a guitar that was around Graceland, just one of the many collections. In addition to Elvis's other guitars, his electric guitars, his acoustic guitars, he also loved the sound of a nylon string. This particular nylon string guitar was one that was kept in Los Angeles. And again, it would be a situation to where Elvis would sit around and pick a tune or two. And this obviously was another favorite guitar of Elvis's. This down here is a rare piece. It's been documented in several books. It belonged to Elvis, and he carried it inside his boot. This gold Beretta, another one of his favorite weapons. This is a World War I commemorative Browning .45. This was Elvis's favorite gun. He would carry this gun everywhere he went. He kept it next to his bed. You know, Elvis being a Army guy, or in the service, you know, serving his country in the Army, he loved Army issue .45s. And I believe that that coupled with his love for the military made this his favorite weapon. One of the biggest questions people ask me is, what did Elvis Presley like to wear? You know, some people say, did he wear blue jeans and T-shirts? Well, no, not really. He didn't wear blue jeans because he didn't like to be reminded of how poor he was down south in the fields of Tupelo. But what he did wear oftentimes was things like this particular workout suit. This one here was one he wore quite often. Several pictures of him with this suit on. It is really a unique artifact. It brings back a lot of memories for me. But Elvis liked to be comfortable, and blue was one of his favorite colors, and this is definitely a unique addition, something that belonged and was worn by Elvis Presley. This is a black belt that was worn by Elvis Presley many, many times. Although he was a 7th and eventually 8th degree black belt, this was amongst his favorite. The unique artifact came from Tennessee Karate, a school that Elvis Presley and Red West once owned. As you can see, it's signed by Elvis Presley and one of Elvis's instructors, Senior Grandmaster Ed Parker. When Elvis wasn't on tour, he loved to work out in karate. Behind us we see one of Elvis's original gis. Elvis had several gis, 2, 3 white ones, a couple of black ones, but this was a gi that Elvis wore probably more than any other. This Dodge mobile home was owned by Elvis Presley in the 1960s. He used to drive from Memphis to Los Angeles when he was making movies. He didn't like to fly that much back then, so driving was his preference of travel. He and some of the other guys would take this from Memphis to Los Angeles 2 or 3 times a year. It's a unique addition to this museum. It's a rare piece, as you can imagine. But this is the way he used to travel. So he went from this to a bigger bus, and then from a bus to his own private jets. This table that I'm sitting on came from a house in Los Angeles that Elvis used to own. We called the house Monteville because it was on Monteville Road in Beverly Hills, California. This particular table was in the living room. As you can see, it's big, you know, wood, held a lot of things. Elvis obviously, you know, had breakfast at this table, kept a lot of books on it when he read. This is just one of the pieces in the museum, and behind us is another piece that came from the Monteville house, this credenza. So this is part of the collection here. This is a unique piece of memorabilia taken from the Hillcrest House, a home that Elvis owned in Los Angeles. The centerpiece was for the dining room table. Elvis, the avid gun collector, always had to have something to keep his guns in. This is a case, as you can see in the picture, that actually belonged to Elvis and where he kept his favorite weapons.